A wide view of the village with cobblestone streets, old houses with wooden beams and thatched roofs. Overgrown ivy climbs the walls, and faint smoke rises from chimneys against a backdrop of brooding dark clouds. The shadowy woods loom in the distance, their dark silhouettes contrasting against the dim, overcast light. The slow-moving, murky river snakes through the scene, reflecting the dark clouds above. Ella Blackwood stands among the villagers in the cobblestone street, her long, wavy chestnut-brown hair falling to her mid-back. She gazes ahead with a pensive expression, surrounded by villagers casting wary glances at her. Ella Blackwood's face, highlighting her green eyes and the small beauty mark on her right cheek. Her expression reflects curiosity mixed with unease. A group of villagers, viewed from Ella Blackwood's perspective, whispering to each other. Their wary glances occasionally shift toward her, their expressions tinged with suspicion. First-person POV from Ella Blackwood looking at the villagers. The cobblestone street and the overgrown ivy-covered walls of the houses frame the scene as the villagers cast furtive glances in her direction. An elderly villager, with a weathered face and a hunched posture, gestures subtly toward Ella Blackwood while whispering to another villager. Ella Blackwood's hands clutching the edges of her cloak, her knuckles slightly pale from the pressure. The cobblestones, damp from the recent rain, with a small puddle reflecting the dark clouds above. Ella Blackwood stands in the center of the frame, surrounded by villagers casting nervous glances at her. The overcast light creates long, faint shadows on the cobblestones. A villager with a furrowed brow, their gaze fixed on Ella Blackwood, standing near the ivy-covered wall of a house. Over Ella Blackwood's shoulder, the villagers are seen whispering and casting glances in her direction. The overgrown ivy and wooden beams of the houses frame the scene. Ella Blackwood's boots standing on the cobblestone street, the hem of her cloak brushing against the damp stones. The murky river flows slowly, its surface rippling with faint movements. Dark trees on the riverbank create an ominous reflection in the water. Ella Blackwood's profile as she turns her head slightly, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination. The shadowy woods are faintly visible in the background, a villager's hands nervously gripping the edge of their cloak, hinting at their unease about Ella Blackwood's presence. Ella Blackwood, viewed from a low angle, standing tall among the villagers. Her chestnut brown hair catches the dim light, emphasizing her presence against the gloomy backdrop. View of the cobblestone street, with villagers scattered around Ella Blackwood. The overgrown ivy and thatched roofs of the houses add to the rustic charm. The shadowy woods in the distance, framed by the old houses and the slow-moving river, creating a sense of foreboding. Ella Blackwood's hand gently brushing against the ivy climbing the wall of a house, her fingers tracing the textured leaves. The dense woods stretch endlessly, with towering gnarled trees arching overhead. Occasional beams of light filter through the canopy, illuminating patches of damp moss and twisted roots. Ella Blackwood walks cautiously along the dimly lit path, her figure dwarfed by the towering trees around her. Her gaze is fixed ahead, her expression tense and determined. Ella Blackwood's face, illuminated by a faint beam of light filtering through the trees. Her green eyes are wide, reflecting caution and determination, as her chestnut brown hair falls loosely over her shoulders. A close-up of Ella Blackwood's boot stepping on the thick, damp moss, partially crushing a small, delicate fern. The ground is littered with fallen leaves and twigs. The twisted, gnarled branches of the trees stretch ominously overhead, creating a dark and foreboding archway. Shadows shift and dance among the branches. First-person POV looking forward. Ella Blackwood's outstretched hand gently brushes against the rough bark of a tree, the texture visible against her pale skin. A close-up of the tree bark under Ella Blackwood's fingers, showing its rough, aged texture with small patches of moss clinging to it. Ella Blackwood pauses and looks over her shoulder, her chestnut brown hair swaying slightly as she listens intently. Her expression is alert and slightly apprehensive. The dark woods behind Ella Blackwood, seen from her perspective, with shadows moving unnaturally among the trees. The faint suggestion of faces or figures is visible within the shadows. Ella Blackwood grips the strap of her bag tightly, her knuckles white with tension. Her other hand hovers near her chest, as if steadying herself. The faint glow of light filtering through the trees creates a mystical pattern on the moss-covered ground. Shadows flicker and shift in a way that suggests movement. Ella Blackwood ventures deeper into the woods, her form partially obscured by the dense trees. The path becomes narrower and more shadowed, amplifying the sense of unease. Shadows on the forest floor twist and writhe as if alive, creating unsettling patterns that seem to follow Ella Blackwood's movements. Ella Blackwood's face as she gathers her courage, her lips pressed into a thin line and her green eyes narrowing with determination. The camera pans upward to reveal the dense canopy of intertwining branches, with faint beams of light struggling to penetrate the darkness. Ella Blackwood stops abruptly, her head tilting slightly as she listens to faint whispers. Her gaze shifts to the side, scanning the woods with growing curiosity. From Ella Blackwood's perspective, the woods ahead seem to shift and move subtly, with shadows elongating and retreating like living entities. Ella Blackwood's hand clutching a small, intricately carved pendant hanging from her neck. Her thumb traces the grooves of the design. The gnarled roots of a tree twist unnaturally, forming shapes that seem almost human. The moss-covered bark glistens faintly in the dim light. Ella Blackwood takes a deep breath, her chest rising and falling visibly as she steps forward with renewed determination, her gaze fixed ahead. A mystical clearing surrounded by ancient weathered stones forming a circle, with faint mist swirling around the stones and wildflowers scattered across the uneven ground. The setting glows with an otherworldly light. A weathered stone, its surface etched with faint, mysterious symbols illuminated by the glow. Ella Blackwood stands at the edge of the clearing, her figure partially obscured by the mist, her gaze fixed on the center of the circle. From Ella Blackwood's POV, an ethereal figure of Lord Blackwood materializes in the center of the clearing, his form slightly translucent and glowing faintly, with the mist swirling around his tall and imposing figure. Lord Blackwood, standing in the center of the clearing, his piercing blue eyes fixed forward, and his black hair slightly moving as if stirred by an unseen force. The mist clings to his figure. Ella Blackwood, standing on the uneven ground near a cluster of wildflowers, her expression a mix of fear and determination as she listens intently. Her chestnut brown hair catches the glow from the clearing. Ella Blackwood's face, focusing on her green eyes wide with emotion, reflecting the faint glow of the clearing. Ella Blackwood's hands clasp tightly in front of her, trembling slightly against the backdrop of wildflowers and mist. From Lord Blackwood's POV, Ella Blackwood stands at the edge of the clearing, her figure framed by the ancient stones behind her, her chestnut brown hair glowing faintly in the light. Lord Blackwood's face, his piercing blue eyes filled with an otherworldly intensity, and his pale complexion glowing faintly in the mist. A side view of Ella Blackwood and Lord Blackwood in the clearing. Ella Blackwood standing near the edge while Lord Blackwood's translucent figure dominates the center of the circle. The clearing, revealing the circular arrangement of the stones, the faint glowing mist, and the two figures facing each other amidst the wildflowers. Lord Blackwood's hand gesturing slightly, with faint tendrils of light emanating from his translucent fingers. A patch of wildflowers swaying gently despite the absence of wind, with the glow of the clearing casting eerie shadows. Ella Blackwood, standing motionless near the stones, her figure illuminated by the glow as she gazes up at Lord Blackwood, an expression of conflicted emotions on her face. From Ella Blackwood's POV, Lord Blackwood's form begins to fade slightly, his expression solemn as the mist thickens around him. The clearing as Lord Blackwood's figure dissipates into the mist, leaving Ella Blackwood standing alone near the stones. Ella Blackwood's face, her green eyes glistening as she gazes at the empty space where Lord Blackwood stood moments ago. A single wildflower in the clearing, its petals glowing faintly in the remaining light as the mist begins to clear. The desolate riverbank stretches out, with dark, swirling waters reflecting the dim twilight sky. Patches of grass peek through the rocky ground, and an ancient stone bridge arches overhead in the distance. Ella Blackwood stands at the riverbank, holding the hidden relic tightly in her hands. She gazes down at the dark waters, her figure silhouetted against the fading light. Ella Blackwood's hands clutching the relic, its intricate design partially visible. Her knuckles are white from the pressure of her grip. Ella Blackwood's face is shown in profile, her green eyes fixed on the river. Her expression is somber and contemplative as she stands on the rocky riverbank. The dark, swirling waters of the river, reflecting the ominous twilight sky. Ripples distort the reflection of Ella Blackwood's silhouette. Ella Blackwood lifts the relic slightly, her hands trembling. The intricate patterns on the relic begin to shimmer faintly. First person, POV looking down at the relic in Ella Blackwood's hands. The faint shimmer intensifies, casting small glimmers of light on her fingers. The relic in Ella Blackwood's hands glows brighter, its intricate patterns illuminated. The surrounding atmosphere takes on a faint, ethereal glow. Ella Blackwood whispers, an incantation, her lips moving softly. Her gaze remains fixed on the relic as the glow intensifies. The edge of the forest at twilight. Shadows shift among the trees as faint, ghostly shapes retreat deeper into the woods. The spirits, seen as faint, translucent figures, retreat into the woods. Their presence becomes less distinct as they move further into the shadows. Ella Blackwood lowers the relic, which now glows faintly, and gazes into the distance. Her posture is relaxed, and her expression hints at relief and hope. The rocky riverbank with patches of grass, now bathed in a faint, otherworldly light. The dark waters flow calmly, reflecting the glow of the relic. The relic in Ella Blackwood's hands, its glow fading slowly. The intricate patterns are now fully illuminated, exuding a sense of calm and transformation. Ella Blackwood turns away from the riverbank, the relic still in her hands. The ancient stone bridge is visible in the background as she begins to walk away.